Hey everyone, Dan at Ochoco Bushcraft. Well, I'm out here on what I like to call a survival hike. And for me, what that is I find an area up in the Ochocos that I have never been in. I take my little 9-pound survival kit and take off exploring and just work my way through the area and find a place to set up some kind of a little camp. It might be for the day, it might even be overnight, depending on what I'm doing, and practice my skills and apply them to areas that I'm not familiar with. And so I wanted to maybe turn that into a little series for you guys. So I need to come in maybe the next video, load this out. As I said, it's gone through a few changes from last year, so I want to show you what those changes are. But one of the things that I consider to be one of the most important aspects of survival is taking advantage of what nature offers. You know, tinder resources, fire resources like fat wood here in the Ochocos, knowing how to find fat wood. And as you're hiking through an area, keeping an eye out. Okay, here's a good place to shelter. Hey, that dead tree over there is great firewood. Here's some fat wood. So maybe I'm hiking on and I don't find anything better or near as good. And said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to hike back to that spot that I saw earlier because it had great resources. So keeping your eyes out for good resources and knowing how to use those resources and how to take advantage of them. And that's a big thing for survival, because often, you know, maybe you have a tarp or a poncho, you know, in a kit this size, you can only have something so big. I've got a very small 5-foot by 8-foot tarp, basically the same size as a poncho. Sometimes I have a poncho in here depending on the forecast. No rain for a couple weeks at least out here. So using what minimum gear I carry in addition to the resources for survival. So in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about shelter and then build something. Right behind me is a natural shelter, and I consider there's 3 kinds of shelter. There's the shelter you carry with you, poncho, tarp, tent, whatever. There's a natural shelter that you find. Maybe you find a cave or a rock overhang, or you know, some bent over trees where the boughs are so heavy you can just crawl in and go to sleep. And then the third kind is the kind that you build. And what works really well in a survival situation is combining what nature provides with what you carry. So let me show you this here. So that gives me some really good partial cover. Now, if I'm going to stay the night, there's actually a huge amount of pine needles in there already. I could probably add a few more, so my ground cover is pretty good. I got 2 options because I do need to insulate myself from the breeze and stuff that's flowing through. And so I could start gathering materials, cutting tree browse and things, or I can just take my small tarp in here and work it inside of what nature's already provided. So I'm using the 2 together, and that's, again, for me, that's one of the coolest skills to master out here, is to learn how to take what you've brought, whatever it is, whether it be for fire, shelter, you know, food, and combine it with whatever nature provides. And so I just want to do a series of videos where I'm coming out, going on survival hikes in different terrain, different areas that I've never been in, and show you guys how I would apply different skills in that area. Let me show you some of this. So here's where I am. And there is no trails, there is no roads. I just took off cross country, which is what I do. And I've come to think of the Ochocos as my backyard, so no compass. I have one with me, but I can tell you what directions I need to go to get out of here without a problem. And then here's my little shelter back in here. So let's turn this little shelter into something sustainable for the night, combining what nature's already provided with this little 5 by 8 foot tarp that I brought. Okay, first thing, you kind of got to become an artist in your mind when you're going to learn to combine man-made with nature provided. That goes with, fire making, shelter building, maybe using a setup that nature's provided for a natural trap, animal trap, or a funnel. You kind of got to let go of some concepts. Like when you're setting up a tarp between trees, for example, you're always thinking, pull the ridge line tight, stake the tarp down tight, things like that. You got to let go of some of that. This tarp, when it's set up, it may have wrinkles, it may be uneven, it may be crooked and stuff, but it's going to be secure and it's going to provide the shelter I need. So I have a branch here coming down, and I have a branch here. My idea is to stretch this tarp across them, bring it down on one side, tie it off, or stake it down. I won't know till I get that far. Let's see what happens. All right, so that gives me the overhead I want. There is a breeze blowing now, and I know it'll pick up this evening. So I'm gonna wanna secure this. I'll probably stake down the bottoms and tie off the tops. But I also wanna get one side down and get some wind protection. So I'm gonna crawl in here, play with the design just a little bit, and figure out what will be the best for doing that. Okay, I'm gonna give you a little tour here. I figured out how I want to lay this in. So originally, I was gonna lay it over the top, which gave me a great roof. And if I was worried more about rain or something, I would have it over the top of these two. But it's gonna be dry tonight, and what I want is to keep that breeze off of me. So I want a wall on one side of me, and then the limbs and things will shelter me on the other side. So you can get an idea here. I'm gonna stake that down. I'm gonna tie it off and just kind of form it into kind of a little A-frame, except for one side will be partially open, but I'm gonna have wind protection, and then I'm gonna be able to take handfuls of that and turn that into a nice thick bed in there. So I'll try to put you guys where you can see me as I do this. One other thing to think about as I get ready to tie part of this off, camouflage and concealment can become a real part of a survival situation. Maybe it's something as simple as you're just hunting and you want to shelter in and you're near a game trail, but also, maybe things went sideways. So learning how to use man-made materials, like a military poncho. This tarp is, like I said, about the same size. It's an old Bushcraft Outfitters tarp. Unfortunately, they're out of business. Combine that with what nature provides, and you have camouflage, you have concealment, and you have a very easy to construct shelter that combines two different resources for protection from the elements. bring this up here and put that off on that tree. So let me grab a little bit more cordage and a couple stakes. Feels quiet in here. So remember what I just said about taking advantage of what nature provides. I went to get some cordage and I decided I would just lace this branch through the tie out on the tarp and gently, so it doesn't break. I will tie that into a loose overhand knot. So it's not super secure, but do that again. Now it is. Now that's going to hold it where I want it. So this corner I need to stake down, and I have black stakes deliberately. And I'm going to have to adjust that just a hair. Hang on. Okay, had to make a few modifications. So first of all, I didn't use any cordage. I actually took this fir bough and put it right through the tie out on the tarp and tied the fir bough itself into an overhand knot. So that secured that to give me head cover. My little stake that I had wasn't long enough, so I went ahead and made one here and then used the other one back there. So I've got probably 2 or 3 stakes to go around on the back side, and then I'm going to tie off that front corner, and then again all I need to do is just start filling this up with handfuls of pine needles, and I'm going to have a perfect little survival shelter. So once again, I'm going to take advantage of what nature provides. The ground here is really soft, so I don't need to hammer in stakes. I can push them in. This is the Architect 5.5, by the way. So I'm going to take advantage of what nature's provided here, and I'm going to put that through my tie out. There. So that not only holds this corner down, but this weaved right into the other tree boughs, just give me more protection here. And it would be really easy to cut a dozen tree boughs and weave in this whole side and then just have one opening to crawl in. So let's try this thing out. Before I get in there, I want to show you fir, willow, thin pine branches, anything that's long and thin and green you can use as cordage. So see that? I just tied that into an overhead knot. And I can tie that into a couple times and secure tie outs for a tarp or grommets on a poncho or whatever you need for your shelter. So I have one more place here to tie off, and rather than use my cordage, I'm going to use this. And so just to show you here, maybe you don't have no cordage with you. Okay, this stuff will hold secure enough, and you can make multiple wraps. You don't have to settle for just one piece. You can grab a whole bunch of these, tie them off, and secure poles together. So tie another one around, and then one over this way. Use like 3 or 4. So I'd use more than I would on cordage because it's not as strong. But I have built an entire tripod with shelves to cook jerky on over a fire, just out of pieces of willow and things like this. Okay, let's get that untied. It's holding really well. So I got one more piece of the tarp to secure over here. I'm going to use this. Perfect. Okay, so I actually did not use any cordage. I used thin fir boughs like this right here to tie off all the places on my tarp. I used a couple of my tent stakes on the back combined with what nature had to offer. And this looks good. This looks really good. That's nice. So I'm completely sheltered on this side that the wind is hitting. So I have no wind hitting me at all. I'm sheltered overhead. My body, lower part of my body is secured in here. And all I need is to add another foot or so of these for my bedding. And in my kit, I have a 55-gallon drum liner, so I can use that for a mattress, or I can actually pull it all the way up around my body, put pine needles inside of it with me, and insulate that way. And of course, I am properly dressed. I have extra layers of clothing. And yeah, this is nice. So this is what I'm talking about. You know, to learn to identify and take advantage of your resources, and to always notice them as you travel. When I'm out here and I'm first teaching people and we're walking through the woods, I will stop and I'll say, you know, did you notice that we just passed 3 sources of fat wood? Did you notice the natural overhang shelter under that tree or under those rocks? You know, and the vast majority of the time the answer is no, I didn't see any of those things. You got to train the mind. Okay, from now on as we walk, I want you to identify the tinder resources, the fire resources, the dead wood for a bigger sustained fire. I want you to pick out the best shelter locations, and then find places where the two come together, and tell me, how would you do it there? What would you build here? And so retrain your mind so that when you're out, you constantly see and identify those resources and think about how you can use them and how you can unite the resources you carry with the resources nature provides. Again, this whole thing, I used no cordage. I guess I forgot this one spot here. When I first started, I used cordage, but had I been thinking outside the box to start with, I could have done a fir bough right there. So as I went, the whole rest of this is tied with fir boughs natural wood stakes and branches, and a couple of my stakes in the back. Let me give you guys one final walk around from the outside. So there is my open side right there in front of my camera tripod where I just was. And as we walk around, again, you can see there's one of my tie outs, and it's tied to a branch with a fir bough. Here is the natural stake I made, shoved down into the ground, and I used a bough for the stake, so it just intertwines with the other boughs. Laid a little piece of wood across the bottom to hold it secure. And here's the back side, completely walled in down to the ground to block the wind. And again, this tarp is approximately the same size as a military poncho. So if you prefer to carry a poncho, you can duplicate this same setup. And just adding back in about camouflage and concealment, something like that just blends right into the surroundings. I'm only a few feet away, but I get a few yards out, and that's wouldn't even be noticed. All right, everyone, Dan at Ochoco Bushcraft. Hope you like this. Again, I just want to do this for a while as a series. I hope it's something you'll enjoy. So I need to give you a little loadout of my survival pack. I'll try to do that in the next video so you can see what tools I am working with, like my tent stakes, of course, knife, hatchet that I'll have along, and do what I did today. I have never been in this spot. This is a brand new location. I just picked a draw out here above a creek. I've never been up there. Let's go find out what's up there. And I found a couple little valleys and some meadows, and then this, I'm surrounded by spots just like this. There's dozens and dozens of spots that I can see from right here. We could have done something similar. But going out to different locations I've never been in, different environments, some up high, some down low, and take advantage of the resources and just show you guys, hey, this is how I would use my survival kit. So I've got great shelter right here. I know exactly where the creek is in the bottom of this canyon, so I can fill up my water bottle and my little CNOC bag for the night and have water. I'm surrounded by fir and pine, so I can make pine needle tea. Of course, I've got my emergency survival nutrition drink with me in my little pack. If I needed a fire, you know, things changed and went sideways, I could dig out a little pit here and make a small fire. But I think my trash bag filled with pine needles and me in it would probably be the best option. Dan at Ochoco Bushcraft. Hope you guys enjoy this. Take care, everyone.